So in our previous video, we have understood that what are the calcium channels, what are the different kinds of calcium channel. In this video, we'll be dealing up with the calcium channel blockers. What are the drugs, which are the drugs used for blocking the calcium channels? As we know that calcium channels can be divided into voltage sensitive channel, receptor operated channel, lead channels, and voltage sensitive channel can be further divided into L-type channels, T-type channels, and N-type channels. So the calcium channel blockers predominantly and specifically blocks the voltage sensitive channels. The calcium channel blockers blocks the voltage sensitive channels, these voltage sensitive channels which are operative by a difference in the membrane potential. And specifically within voltage sensitive channels, these CCBs block only the L type of channels. Now, the classes of CCBs. There are three main classes. On the basis of the structure, we have classified CCBs. First, phenylalkylamine, dihydropyridine, benzothiazepine. So in phenylalkylamine, they are hydrophilic in nature, and the drugs under this category are verapamil and norverapamil. Dihydropyridine contains nifedipine, nicardipine, amlodipine, nisoldipine, nitrandipine, isradipine, lacidipine, felodipine. Dihydropyridine are lipophilic in nature and they are the most potent class among all of them. Benzothiazepine, the third category, the third class on the basis of structure on the CCBs. They are hydrophilic in nature and the drug under this category is diltiazem. The first drug under the first category, phenylalkylamines, was verapamil. Verapamil was developed in Germany in 1962 as a coronary dilator. With the term coronary dilator, I meant to say that the coronary artery will get dilated after administration of verapamil by the action of calcium channel blockers, that is, with the action of verapamil. As you can see in the below video, after administration of verapamil molecules, the coronary artery gets dilated. Second was that the verapamil has a very good cardioprotective action. Further, Flenkestein in 1967 showed that verapamil interfered with the calcium movements in the cell. Flenkestein was the individual to evaluate the mechanism or the hypothesis behind the action of verapamil having the effect of coronary dilation and cardioprotection. Now, pharmacological effects. We have divided the pharmacological effects within two categories depending on the tissue they are acting. First, in smooth muscle cells. In smooth muscle cells, they act in this way. Calcium molecules enters via the calcium channel. Now these calcium molecules trigger the sarcoplasmic reticulum that has stored calcium within it. The stored calcium from the sarcoplasmic reticulum are released along with the calcium in the cytoplasm available in the cytoplasm after making the combination of calcium and calmodulin. Now the myosin light chain kinases gets phosphorylated after activation, and these MLCKs are converted or are used to convert myosin into in the combination of myosin and actin after the activation by the calcium and calmodulin combinations released from sarcoplasmic reticulum. These myosin and actin combinations are further phosphorylated and that leads to contraction. This was about the normal regulation of calcium within the cell signaling. Now, after administration of calcium channel blockers, the frequency of calcium channel opening gets decreased. As you can see that this was the calcium channel, this is the calcium channel, and in normal conditions, the calcium was flowing very easily and being regulated. But as soon as the calcium channel blockers are given, the frequency of calcium being entered within via this calcium channel got reduced. The decreased entry of calcium within the layer of blood vessel, that is tunica intima, leads to relaxation of smooth muscles related with the tunica, and this leads to opposition, or you can say opposite effect being produced earlier. So in place of contraction, now vasodilation will be occurring. Pharmacological effects. In cardiac muscles, that is in heart, in normal conditions, calcium ion moves within the cell during the plateau phase of the action potential in artery and ventricular fibers, as we all know. Now, this releases more and more calcium ions in the sarcoplasmic reticulum, and which involves troponin, and that leads to contraction. But after administration of calcium channel blockers, this pathway got disturbed, and disturbance in this pathway leads to decreased heart activity, heart rate, conduction, and negative inotropic effect, which further leads to vasodilation. There are some drug-specific effects which need to be discussed while discussing about the drugs. So we have classified the drug-specific effect on the basis of the main prototype drug of each class. Like from phenylalkylamine, we have taken verapamil. From benzothiazepine, we have taken diltiazem. And from dihydropyridine, that is DHP, we have taken nifedipine. So, the delay recovery process. By the term delay recovery process, I meant to say that the zero-phase depolarization in SA and AV node is largely calcium mediated, and atomicity and conductivity of these cells appear to be dependent on rate of recovery of calcium channels. Now, L-type calcium channels activate as well as inactivate at the slow rates, which results in calcium depolarized cells. And the calcium depolarized cells have a considerably less steep zero phase and longer refractory periods. We all know that activated or in the activated condition, calcium enters the cell, and in inactivated phase, no such transfer of calcium takes place. After activated and inactivated phases, there is a time-dependent recovery phase, which again leads to activation of calcium channels. Now, this recovery time-dependent phase, is delayed by verapamil and diltiazem, both of them. The recovery process, which restores the calcium channel to state from which it can again be activated by membrane depolarization, is delayed by verapamil and diltiazem, that leads to depression of conduction. But this is not done in the case of nifedipine, in the case of dihydropyridines. Moreover, the calcium channel blockage by verapamil is enhanced at the rate of stimulation, and that by nifedipine it is independent of frequency, while diltiazem is intermediate. So I guess delayed recovery process is a bit clear to you. Now coming to frequency dependent blockage. By the term frequency dependent blockage, uh, like for example, after stimulation, at what frequency and after what frequency, is it dependent or independent, the calcium channel will be activated and the blockage will be done. So in the cases of verapamil, there is a prominent frequency dependent blockage, whereas in the case of diltiazem, it is intermediate, whereas in the case of rifampicin, it is totally independent of frequency dependent blockage. Now, third point is whether it slows down sinus automaticity or AV conductivity. So yes, verapamil slows down SA automaticity and AV conductivity. Similarly, diltiazem also follows the same path, but nifedipine does not slow down the SA automaticity and AV conductivity. With respect to vascular smooth muscles, that is blood vessels, yes, verapamil causes good relaxation when we talks about relaxation of blood vessels. Whereas on comparing verapamil and diltiazem, diltiazem shows a reduced relaxation as compared to verapamil. However, nifedipine shows an excellent vascular smooth muscle relaxation. That is why it is also known as peripherally acting calcium channel blocker. In terms of cardiodepressants, verapamil has excellent cardiodepressant action as it has pronounced effect on the heart as compared to diltiazem, which also showed similar effect but not as good as verapamil. However, nifedipine causes a, a slightly lower, a bit lower cardiodepressant effect as high doses of nifedipine are required to produce a cardiodepressant effect. Talking about clinical uses, verapamil can be used in angina, arrhythmia, and PVST conditions. Diltiazem may be used in angina and hypertension cases. Nifedipine can be used in hypertension and arrhythmias. These uses are not restricted to the below uses. There can be more such uses. Now, considering each an individual drug with respect to their uses, verapamil has maximum cardiodepressant activity as it produces a prominent vasodilation, so it can be used in hypertensive cases. It can also be taken in angina and paroxysmal supraventricular tachycardia. In conditions like hypertrophic obstructive cardiomyopathies, we want hyperactivity to be reduced. So we can take verapamil as it has maximum cardiodepressant activity and it will be very effective in decreasing the hypertensive in heart activity that is overactive at that point of moment. Along with this, the in angina cases, as the contractile action in angina is due to reflex tachycardia in cases of nifedipine. So in this case also we can prescribe verapamil as it has maximum cardioprotective action. Talking about diltiazem, the cardioprotective depression and cardiodepressive action are there, but they are less active than verapamil. So they can be used for angina, PSVTs and hypertensions for the similar reasons, but not as prominent as verapamil. Now there is a comparative analysis of CCBs. We have compiled all the prototype drugs from each and every class like phenylalkylamine, benzothiazepine and dihydropyridines and compared them on the basis of their interaction, properties, contraindications, adverse drug reaction and doses. In cases of interaction, verapamil are prescribed not to be given with the beta blockers as the beta blockers cause cardiac depression and verapamil are also a very potent drug for having cardiodepressive action. So beta blockers reducing cardiac depression and verapamil causing cardiodepression can lead to a very prominent and high depressive activity on the heart. So as to prevent such kind of disaster within the heart, we try and we obviously not prescribe both of the drugs collectively in a combination. So beta blockers are never given with verapamil as to prevent additive sinus depression. Sick sinus syndrome is a condition where conductive pathways are decreased. So if the cardiac depressive activity is increasing, that is, if the depression on the heart is decreasing, that will lead to decrease in the conduction pathways also. And as in the condition of sick sinus syndrome, the conduction pathway is already decreasing, and if we are giving beta blockers that are decreasing the that are leading to depression of the heart, that will again lead to an additive depression on the heart and may lead to conduction defects. So the beta blockers are never prescribed with verapamil. Secondly, they are also not given in CHF conditions. They are never given with digoxin even as they increases the plasma levels of digoxin, increases its toxicity by decreasing their excretion out of the body. In the case of diltiazem, a drug under benzothiazepine category, we again Never prescribe digoxin with diltiazem, as it increases the plasma levels, increases toxicity, and decreases excretion. In cases of nifedipine, no such interaction with beta blockers are seen, and also they are safe in pregnancy conditions. Talking about contraindications of verapamil, diltiazem, and nifedipine, verapamil, they are contraindicated in conduction defects. As I said earlier, in the case of verapamil, the depression is seen. Our depression in the heart is pronounced depression in the heart is seen, so that we can combat with the overactive conditions. But in the conduction defects cases, the patient suffering from conduction defects, it may lead to cardiac heart failure. Also, in sick sinus patients, as I have said earlier, that decrease in conduction pathway was already there. And if we are prescribing verapamil, it has maximum cardiodepression activation effect. So it will be leading to cardiac arrest. And it is also reported that IV injection of verapamil in sick sinus patients leads to cardiac arrest. In the case of diltiazem, in the patient with pre-existing sinus or myocardial disease, this drug is not prescribed. This drug is contraindicated. Also, this drug, diltiazem, can be given with the beta blockers, but with the very low doses of beta blockers or diltiazem. In the case of nifedipine, contraindications are in such a manner that they are reported to hamper diabetes control by decreasing insulin rate. By its relaxing effect on bladder, nifedipine causes increased urine voiding difficulty in elderly males. So, a high monitoring is required while giving or prescribing nifedipine to elderly males, as it causes increased urine voiding difficulties. Similarly, in gastroesophageal reflex may be worsened by all DHPs due to relaxation of lower sphincter. Coming to adverse drug reactions, as we now know that verapamil causes maximum cardiodepressant action. So there are some cases of bradycardia associated with verapamil, along with which nausea, constipation, and occasional hypertension are also reported. The adverse drug reactions associated with diltiazem are similar to verapamil, but with a milder effect. In case of nifedipine, frequent side effects like palpitation, flushing, ankle edema, hypotension, drowsiness, and nausea are observed. These are related to the peaks of drug levels in the blood and can be minimized by low starting dose or fractionalization of the dose. Now, ankle edema in this case is not due to fluid retention, but because of greater dilation of free capillaries than post-capillary vessels. Also, higher mortality among post-myocardial infarcted patients has been confirmed in the case of prescribing or administering nifedipines. However, it has been recorded that they are safe to be administered with beta blockers or digoxin, as I have told in the interactions. Coming down to the doses. Calptin 40 to 8 and 80 mg tablets or 5 mg per 2 ml of injection of Calptin are prescribed or may be prescribed for verapamil preparations. Dilzem 30 and 60 mg tablets or 25 mg per 5 ml injections of Dilzem are the preparation being marketed for diltiazem. Talking about nifedipine, Calcigard in the doses of 5 and 10 mg in the formulation of capsule are prescribed or are being marketed in the market to be prescribed by the physicians. Comparative evaluation of pharmacokinetic activity of all the individual drugs belonging to selective classes of calcium channel blockers. Bioavailability, 15-30% verapamil is bioavailable in the plasma. 40 to 60% is the bioavailability of diltiazem, and 30 to 60% is the bioavailability of nifedipine. Volume of distribution. Verapamil is distributed in 5 liters per kg, 3 liters per kg for diltiazem, and 0.8 liters per kg for nifedipine. Clearance. 0.8 liters per hour per kg is the clearance for verapamil, 0.65 for diltiazem, and 0.4 for nifedipine. Talking about T-half of the drug, verapamil has a T-half of 4 to 6 hours, diltiazem has a T-half of 5 to 6 hours, and nifedipine has a T-half of 2 to 5 hours. So there exists an important concept which must be clear while studying calcium channel blockers. Calcium channel blockers have potential to create or to cause vasodilation. Vasodilation leads to decrease in blood pressure. Now this decreased blood pressure needs to be compensated by the heart, and heart compensates the blood pressure by increasing heart rate, which results in a compensatory mechanism known as reflex tachycardia. Now this reflex tachycardia needs to be cured with the direct cardiac depressive drugs. Now which are these direct cardiac depressive drugs which needs to be prescribed along with these drugs so as to combat the issue of reflex tachycardia? So here you can take any of the dihydropyridines prescribed by the physician. But depending on the T-half, with increase in the T-half, the effect of reflex tachycardia decreases, whereas with a decrease in T-half, the effect of reflex tachycardia increases. So we must take the drugs with higher T-halves. So for example, let's say the T-half for nifedipine is very less. So the effect of reflex tachycardia would be higher. So with a decreased T-half, there are the increasing chances of causing higher reflex tachycardia, which leads to increased risk of angina or coronary artery disease. And it increases the heart to increase work due to increased heart rate. As the heart rate increases, the heart has to work a more and lot for regaining its normal tendency. So in such cases, nifedipine can be a risk if we take it for such condition. Along with vasodilation produced by nifedipine also produces natriuretic effect. Now, nicardipine. Nicardipine was a choice of drug for hypertensive emergencies, which also produce reflex tachycardia. But if this drug is given with beta blockers, it reduces or it avoids the conditions of reflex tachycardia. So this was all about the concept of reflex tachycardia related to calcium channel blockers.